Hello and welcome to the Hangout with Dana show. Today we are going to be talking about the three biggest mistakes transitioning entrepreneurs make, because there are lots of transitions that we make in our business. So I'm going to ask you the question. Do you sometimes feel like you're just floundering around in your business with no clear direction? You don't know what it is to go into the next phase of business or how to get there? Or are you maybe someone who's constantly trying to figure out how to create cash flow strategies that work? Well, if you can answer yes to those questions, then you're on the right Hangout show today. I'm super excited to have Petra Mayer with me today of Petra Mayer Consulting. And Petra is a business strategist expert, and I'm delighted to have her on the show today because Petra has a background a bit like myself, not only in corporate but also working with entrepreneurs. So it's a perfect fit for those of you who have joined us today. So I'll just briefly introduce myself if you're not familiar with my show. My name is Dana Smithers, and I am a business coach, and the way I do business coaching is through using the law of attraction. So I work on helping people get clear on who their ideal client is. Then we come up, actually with business strategy, we come up with a business plan, a marketing plan. And I really focus a lot on the marketing because it's, you can be wonderful in your business, as I know Petra knows, for entrepreneurs. Wonderful, fabulous at it, just the best, the greatest. But when it comes to the business or having a strategy, I think Petra would agree too that most people don't have one. So I know that you're going to get a lot out of today's show. So I would very much like to have Petra introduce herself. And Petra is going to tell us, even where you live, Petra, what kind of business you do, maybe a little bit of history about how you've gotten to where you are today as well. So welcome.
Yeah, well, thank you so much, Dana. And I'm so excited to be here and to talk to your audience about the topics that are so dear to both of our hearts. I think as you said, we've got a very similar history in both of us. We've come from corporate environments, but we're also now working with entrepreneurs, or predominantly working with entrepreneurs, and from that transition. And we meet a lot of people who go through that transition as well. And that's certainly, we're already touching on one of the transitions business entrepreneurs go through in their business. So yeah, I am also, like you, in beautiful Vancouver, and have a company that I am able to work from home. So it's a location independent business, which is something that is very important to me. And I've moved to Canada in 2001. I'm born and grown up in Germany, and but lived in 4 countries on 3 continents and work there. So it's a pretty varied history that I have to look back on. Sometimes I wonder.
Lots of life experience, yeah.
Oh yeah, a lot of experiences, a lot of transitions, a lot of change in my life, which is fun. Change can be scary, but it can be a lot of fun. Yeah, and as you know, and as many of our listeners here today are probably feeling it for themselves, is they're really, really good at what they do. But when it comes to actually taking their business and growing their business and growing it in the online environment, then they really are stuck. They have no idea how to get started. Technology is a big, scary word. And you're amazing, Dana. You're doing this show on Hangout. A lot of people, when they hear Google Hangout, they just want to run for the woods. But you've just embraced it. Yeah. You've just went out and said, hey, there is a new tool, and I can use this tool in my business, and I can use it to grow my business, to engage my audience. So kudos to you for doing that.
And that's perfectly correct. For me, I'm not a techie person per se, but all of us can learn how to do this, and so I did learn. But it was interesting because when I was transitioning, I had sold another business a few years ago, and so I was transitioning and rebranding a bit for my Empowered Women in Business. So I knew exactly what I wanted to do. I wanted to do the one-on-one coaching, the masterminds, and also another program called Discover Your Sacred Gifts. So I knew absolutely with clarity what I wanted to do. I just wasn't really sure how was I going to get that message out there. And I happened to sign up for a course with a mentor, coach of mine. And he said, okay, you know, we're going to do Google Hangout. And I'm going, Now for me, this was actually a couple years ago, and I went, Google Hangout. No clue, right? Okay, what do I do, right? So I'm on YouTube figuring out, you know, what do I do? Because that's usually one of my resources where I get help. And so it took me about a year to really get used to it. But as soon as I saw it, Petra, I went, I love this for coaches, for training, for anybody wanting to get their message out there. I mean, you can have a weekly show or you know, whatever you like. But yeah, I didn't know how to do it. So it was a real transition for me. And most transitions are a little bit scary. But as you and I talked about earlier, you have to look at what's the long-term investment that you're making. So thanks for acknowledging that I learned how to do this, right?
Yeah, and it's just taking that first step. And I know that many entrepreneurs, they're looking for some guidance. They're looking, really what they're looking for is the easy button. Yeah. But the easy button isn't around. So, you know, everything does come with, you know, some investment of time, investment of money, investment of just overcoming the barriers and the scare and the fright. And pick the tools that are out there that work for you. Not everything works for everybody.
Yeah, and that's a really good point, because I know when you talk about your online strategies, we can't be everywhere because we don't need to be, right? So I know you'll be talking about that.
Yeah.
So maybe what we'll do is, you've got 3 of the biggest mistakes that that you wanted to talk about. And maybe we'll just start with that number 1, which is really, really important. So you can go ahead and say that, the first biggest mistake.
Yeah, perhaps even if I may, I would like to actually perhaps first define a little bit, what are transitions? What are business transitions? And where do they show up in the lifespan of your business? And when I thought about that a little bit, I kind of thought, well, you can really look at it from the lifespan. So you're starting when you're starting out. So you might come out of a corporate job like the two of us did, and you're starting and you're saying, I want to start my own business. Perhaps you'll lose your job. Perhaps you're pregnant and don't want to go back to a corporate environment after you have your child. So that's the first transition, is really starting up. If you start up, you come out of school, or if you start up, you come out of a job. It doesn't necessarily matter. You're starting up. You have nothing, and then you open your door. You know, you put your shingle out, whatever that is. It could be a website. Then you go into the growth phase. So during that startup phase, cash generation is the biggest focus in your business. So you need to follow strategies to actually bring in some cash, because if you don't have the cash flow, obviously you'll be stopping your business very quickly. Then you go into the growth phase. So you want to accelerate. That's really where we're trying to target to get to break even. We're trying to target that with the money we're making can cover our costs and allow us to start investing in our business and growing our business. Then after that, it's an acceleration phase, because you come to a certain area where things seem to get a little easier. Suddenly people are coming to you. Like they want to, perhaps.
Yay, we love that.
Yeah, they say, I want to collaborate with you. They come and say, I want to promote you to my audience. I want to do an event with you or something like that. It's the acceleration phase. So this is really where business transformation happens. This is really where we're saying, okay, now I can do what I really wanted to do. And I can start investing in my business to allow me to do what I really wanted to do. So that's a really exciting phase. Then, life happens. Life happens could be somebody opens the door who opens their shop, who is doing something very similar. Somebody buys into somebody. We're having bigger competition. There's big market changes, technology changes. There's changes in trends. All kinds of things can happen that suddenly our wonderful acceleration, sorry, I've got to do this, I think, this way on wonderful acceleration, think the other way around, is suddenly coming to a stall, and we're getting a fright. We're like, oh my God, what's going to happen to me? What's going to happen to my business? A recession happens. What's going to happen to my business? So during that, it's again a business transformation, but it may not necessarily, it may be a course correction in some ways. We're not just getting towards where we really want our business to be. We're looking at our course correction. Then it's a consolidation of the business, which is typically where we start taking cash out of our business. And we're taking, you know, what we've built up, all this investment we build up, we're trying and pull some of that out. And then there's the termination, which is another transition. Now, my heart is more in the build and growth and acceleration phase than the close down phase. So that's kind of where I work with my clients, either in one-on-one or through the programs that I offer. So I might be able to talk a little bit more about that at the end, because I'm very conscious of time here. If we want to come to the first mistake that you mentioned. So it's the first mistake is that many entrepreneurs have really no business model in their mind. So when I look at a business model strategy is very complex when you look at larger organizations. But for an entrepreneur, to me, the main parts of a business model are, what are my revenue streams? So what are the strategies I put out to make money? And then what are the resources I need to put in place to actually allow me to do that? And those resources could be the systems, it could be assets I have to create, it could be resources I'm hiring, I'm outsourcing, that sort of thing. So when we're looking at our money-making strategy on the revenue side, it is the type of services that I want to offer and how they support each other. Like, they all have to kind of go hand in hand to really support each other, rather than to potentially even cannibalize on each other. Our own service can do that if we don't structure them well. And then on the resource side, we're looking at, particularly with an entrepreneur who wants to go online, there's a bunch of software resources that they might have to put in place. Some of them are free or very low cost, while some of them are a substantial investment. So bringing them in at the right time when you need them in order to offer your revenue streams, services, that's really the key in planning out your business model and your strategy, and to plan it out over a time frame.
Right. So I'll just interject here a little bit with law of attraction into play here. It's really important what Petra is saying, that you got to get clear on what's working, what's not working. And I know Petra's business model has changed over time, and my business model has changed over time as well. But it's kind of, as she said, regrouping, and that's a transition time. It's like, okay, this worked before, but for some reason it's not working now. So what is it that I have to do? And there's no question, Petra, I can't think of any business that doesn't have an online presence.
Yeah.
Now, there just isn't any, and I'm sure you experience this when I'm coaching with people, that some of them are still reluctant to use certain social media platforms that I know are what drove my business, and where they're hesitant about that. And sometimes it's just gently taking them by the hand and saying, okay, because if you say, well, social media, some people still go, you know, too much, I can't do it, I don't need it. But even if we just take one, like I know you're really good at the websites and what we need to power a website and all of that. I know you do have speaking engagements on that. But, you know, just even sometimes taking someone and getting them into Facebook, and people having that resistance. Well, I don't want people to know what I do personally. Well, you don't have to let them know what you're eating for lunch, right? I mean, you know, there's other ways to do it. Share things that, you know, enlighten you, inspire you, or whatever, right? So that's a transition time, and just people getting used to doing that. So with law of attraction, what you're saying is, you know, get clear on your business model and get focused on it, because without the clarity, you know, you're doing this, and we all get in the overwhelmed state. Sometimes people do just put things out there, and then you start to see what's working, especially online, what's driving traffic, what isn't. And sometimes we just have to let things go.
Yeah, no, I think that's very true. We can't do everything, as you said. There is so many social media platforms out there. We've got to pick the ones as well that we are able to maintain, because just dipping your finger in here and dipping it here and dipping it here, that's not going to drive.
That's not a strategy.
That's not a strategy. That's really what I see a lot of entrepreneurs doing. So not being really thinking, I mean, I start my strategy always with the client. So I always start with the customer. Who is your audience? Because Facebook is great, but if you're in a business to business environment, then it's not the best. Then you really need LinkedIn. So be really, really clear about where your clients are, where they hang out, where they are expecting to see you. Because I also think it's not just where they hang out. They also need to be in that mindset where they are looking for your service. So I believe that most corporate people also have a Facebook profile. Otherwise, we wouldn't have 1 billion people on Facebook. However, when they're on Facebook, they're interacting with their family and friends. They're not interacting in the business environment. So approaching them for business would not be the appropriate thing. So it's all part of that overall strategy. And as you mentioned, I mean, I do a lot of online strategy. And to me, that's the website, the social media, and how you use your email. Because that's kind of, it's like the wheels in a watch. If they're not touching, that watch isn't going to work. So the same thing, your different wheels have to touch. They have to work together in order to move your business into the direction that you want to have. But how can you get it into the direction that you want to have if you don't know where that is? So you always know where you want to actually move your business. And I think that brings us kind of to the second mistake. Because in the second mistake, what I see is that there is no balance between cash flow strategies and long-term business transformational strategies. So when we're looking at a business, as I said at the beginning, in the startup phase, it's all about cash generation. Unless you've got a big pocket of money sitting somewhere that you can draw from, cash generation is your biggest strategy. So you need to think about what service can you offer that brings in money quickly. Rather than long-term strategies, it's more about short-term strategies. But at one stage, that might get you into a business model that you actually don't really want to be in, because you start doing a lot of work that gets money in fast, but it's not really what drives you. It's not really what excites you. It's not really what your passion is. So that's where the business transformation strategies come in. You know exactly what type of business you want to be in, what services you want to offer. And you start moving your business gently into that direction without ignoring your cash flow strategies. Because cash flow is really where businesses go broke. If they don't have enough cash flow, that's where a business goes bankrupt. So having that right balance. Now, there's dangers here. At the beginning, some of them want to just build out the business that they want to have, so they don't take on the work that would give them immediate cash. That's a danger. On the other hand, there's the other danger, and that's perhaps more common. Entrepreneurs take any work that they can get their hands on, which means that they are not clear about who their target audience is. They're not clear about what they're all about. And that takes them on a path that's just meandering through the woods, but it's never going to get to that wonderful lookout point that they really want to get to. So it's really understanding which strategies can help me make my money that I need. How much of that do I really need, and how much of my effort do I put into the business transformation strategy that gets me up to that lookout point, if I want to use that metaphor, for how we want to get to our goal.
Yeah, and I think that's a perfect way to think about that, because, I think most of us in the beginning, especially when you're a new entrepreneur, we do take on clients that we may not even really understand what the ideal client is, or we think we do. Oh yeah, that's my, or some, Petra, I know you notice this when we go networking. Someone might say, well, who's your client? They say, oh, well, anybody. It just it's like, okay, so who could we narrow that down, right? And once people do that, they may find over time that it's what you and I were talking about earlier, about where that passion is. When you finally get to that place, what really drives you? I think we all in the beginning do take on clients that we know are not ideal clients, and pure law of attraction, if you thought they were going to be trouble, chances are you're probably attracted that, right? The client that, they've paid you the least amount of money, but they want this major amount of services, but they don't really understand those two don't go together, right? So we learn over time which services we can drop. And it's what you said, sometimes I think even getting to that lookout point, we might be on this path going this way, and all of a sudden something can happen. Someone collaborates with us, there's a transition, all of a sudden we're going to go this way. We're still going to get to the same place, but it may be a different path. So being open to that is important, but still knowing where you want to go is key.
Yeah, and allow yourself to do that too, and be gentle with yourself if you made a mistake. You know what? Everybody does. The biggest people out in the business do. They make mistakes, and they didn't get there by not trying different things.
Right,
So
exactly.
that really is key, and it's key to be knowing when you're in a cash place where you can let go or reduce. It's, that's a big step to say, okay, I'm not going to do as much of this anymore where I'm really making my money, because now I've got to put my time and effort into doing more of this, which is really what I want to do.
Yes.
Mentally, that's quite a challenging thing to do. I think a lot of us are struggling with that. And I think that leads me to the third one. So nice, the third mistake. And the third mistake is that entrepreneurs don't ask for help. And when I look at that, there is different ways how I differentiate to asking for help. So asking for help means being ready to start outsourcing certain activities. Mm-hmm. So you were mentioning social media earlier, and social media is one of those things. It can suck so much time out of your day. So time is really valuable, and a lot of entrepreneurs are not giving their own time the value that it deserves. So they think, if I spend 2 hours on social media myself, it didn't cost me anything.
Yes.
But it cost them a lot more potentially than hiring somebody, because this is 2 hours they're not spending connecting with their customers, finding new customers, networking, building content that they can then make money out of. They're investing time rather than money. So finding out, where do you invest money, where do you invest time, is a key feature. And then you start outsourcing. You have somebody who manages some of your social media so that you are freed up with your time, and you can use that time in a much more efficient way that makes a bigger impact in your business. So that's one thing. So outsourcing is a big one. Another one is to really just ask for help. Ask for help. People know, speak to family members, friends, get their opinion. Just don't be kind of all closed up and say, I've got to figure this out by myself, because otherwise I don't look like a great entrepreneur. Right. This is not what entrepreneurship is about. I agree with
that. When I see people, they think, and myself, I can do it all, right? Or you have that mindset, well, I don't have the money, so I better do it all. But what I'd like to add to, not only are you wasting time and money, but the energy's life's being sucked right out of you, right? So was it worth it to do something in social media or anything that you're not good at?
Yeah.
Right? And that 2 hours, someone could have done maybe in 20 minutes. Right. Yeah. So there you are. You're just like, oh, I hate doing this. And energetically, from the law of attraction viewpoint, when you even do those posts, they won't attract the same energy that it would if somebody was just doing it. They're loving it. They're moving with it. It's just great. And they're happy about it. So it all works together.
And it's a great peace of mind when somebody is looking after a certain part of your business. I mean, that doesn't mean you let go of your responsibilities. You look into things, you check with that person, but it's a great peace of mind. Okay, something is going without me actually having to do anything about it. So that's a really big one. Asking for help is a big one, because when you even come across something, like let's say you decide you do your social media posts yourself and you realize that you're spending a lot of time on it. And let's say you're talking to a fellow entrepreneur about that, and that person said to you, well, have you tried Hootsuite? Have you tried Edgar? Have you tried Buffer? And then you would say, I have no idea what you're talking about. Well, then here's a learning opportunity where somebody tells you how you can simplify it by using systems that are out there that are not too expensive and that really take a whole chunk of time out of that activity. So talking to entrepreneurs, to others about it, is a big one for getting tips and tricks of what they are using to make life easier for them. And you can do that in your networking groups. You can do that. I've created my own mastermind where I'm together with a few people and we're helping each other out. And it's my first point of contact. You can do that in some networking Facebook groups. You can post something up and say, I'm struggling with this. Has anybody got a good idea how I can go about it? Right. And then, of course, you can talk to your coach, or take opportunities. There's lots of opportunities to check in with coaches to find out who is a good fit for the part where you are in the business. What's your primary area that you need help with? Then you work with a coach on that area, and then you move on, and you probably have something else that becomes your primary part, and it may be a different coach at that time. So really investing and finding the right people that help you to accelerate, to get into that acceleration phase and growth phase of your business. That's really the key.
Absolutely. And I love the fact that you mentioned about, just talking with people in your networking groups, because Petra and I both belong to eWomen Network, as well as other networking groups as well. But, there's so much value within that group. And we also have a private Facebook page. And then there's also a public one. And then, of course, there's the whole network of eWomen as well that, it doesn't have to be eWomen that you check out, but, start,
fabulous one,
networking, is one of them that you want to get going to, because that's where you have those conversations. And I love what you said about the coaches, Petra. That's one thing when I first started my business, like, I don't know, so many years ago now, right? Because I've had 3 small businesses. But when I first started, I didn't hire a coach because I thought I could do it all, right?
Yeah.
And I came out of corporate and I was in sales and marketing, so I knew what to do, but wrong, right? I didn't. For being an entrepreneur, I didn't know how to do it. Yes, I knew how to network in things, but it's totally different. So when I finally did hire a coach, I had that coach for several transitions in my business. But then it was no longer the right fit because I wanted to look at something else. Like I said, just the same with doing Google. I hired a different coach to teach me how to do this. So, there's asking for help. And I know, Petra, we're going to get to your free offer in a minute as well. But, most coaches will give you a complimentary, for me, I call it a 30-minute coaching session. I think Petra calls her business strategy meetings. But most coaches want to get to know you to see if you're the right fit for them, right? Because we want to know that we can make a difference and give you the result that you're looking for. And there are times when I'll turn down people, and I think Petra the same, if I don't think that I'm going to be able to help them. But I will always refer them to somebody else. That's one thing I love about eWomen and other groups I belong to, that there's always somebody that knows something that I don't know that I can refer someone to. So, So Petra, why don't you?
Really agree. I love that you brought in eWomen, because eWomen is such a wonderful networking group where we have the wisdom circle that we can go to. And seeing what people get out of the wisdom circle every time again, it just really lights me up, because sometimes I'm thinking like, oh, this takes a lot of time for me out of the day. And when I leave the meeting, I'm like, oh, I'm so glad I came, because it is always an amazing experience. So certainly a great networking group to check into. But then there is meetup groups where you get to meet with people who have expertise in areas, and they're more than willing to share their advice and to share their information.
Right. And I'll just mention meetup groups. They're, smart business women like us, entrepreneurs. We don't belong just to one networking group. There's several. And there's meetups that I go to that have an entirely different flavor. They may not even be business related. But it's amazing how when you go with the intention of how can you serve or who could you help, it's amazing what comes back to you. And all of a sudden somebody knows somebody that may need your help or something, even if you're not going there with the intention of looking for a client. So there's so many things we have access to now, and so many free offers that people have, that you just have to find the one that resonates with you and works for you at that time.
Yeah.
And it's okay, ladies or anybody watching, to unsubscribe to emails you no longer want to get or events you're no longer interested in. I think it's a good, healthy thing to do for your business.
Yeah, because it can become overwhelming. There's a lot of information out there. And, there are some entrepreneurs who probably get stuck behind the computer at home or sit at the phone waiting for it to ring. It's not going to happen if you're not out there. So you've got to get out. And when you're out, you have to be intentional. You have to have a plan of where you're going. It's not about building a social a social happening for you when you go there as a business owner. It is about finding the right fit for your business, where you can connect with people who need your services or you need your collaboration,
Right.
and go to those groups. And if in other groups that don't serve that purpose, but you have lots of people you like, well, make a coffee appointment and just meet them for a social event.
Exactly.
So, it's the same thing as online. You have a private sphere and you have a business sphere, and just behave within those spheres appropriately. I've made basically all my social media is about my business. It doesn't mean that I don't do personal posts, because we are a person in our business, but I'm not using it to connect with my friends. For that, I pick up the phone or I go and see them for dinner. And that to me is much more important, that personal connection with my friends. And I use my social media only from a perspective of making connections for my business. So yes, you were mentioning my free gift.
Yes.
Okay to mention it now. And I know we couldn't get the lower third to work.
Yeah. So I'm actually going to hold it up. This is
a wonderful lower third. So what I invite you to do is come and get this report that I've created specifically for this show. And of course, last night, I redid the report because I'm like, oh no, I want to put more into it. so I was sitting until midnight making.
Oh, that's perfectionism, right? We got to let that go. This is where you can
add more into the report. So go to petramayerconsulting.com, which is my website, and then /3 mistakes -report. It's petramayerconsulting.com /3 mistakes -report.
Great.
And that's where you will be able to sign up for getting this report that I've created specifically about these 3 mistakes and the business transition. But within the report, you have access to contact me to get what I call an outsourcing calculator. So this is a really nifty tool where you can start plunking in the different tasks that you have in mind, and it will show you if you should consider outsourcing this one, if you should consider scrapping it all together, if you need to do this yourself, or if you might want to choose to do this yourself. So it's a really nifty tool, and I'm more than happy to share that with your audience. So get in touch with me. There is a link to send me an email, and I'd love to hear from you, and I'd love to hear some feedback, how this helped you. So it's petramayerconsulting.com /3 mistakes -report.
That's great, Petra. And yeah, I'm actually going to sign up for that. That's a wonderful thing too about collaborating with women. Even though Petra and I are in a similar business, I never ever look at anyone as being a competitor. It's not a word in my vocabulary. People are in similar businesses, and we all have unique gifts and talents and skills to offer people. So, I like people to be thinking about collaboration, and, I love it when other people, my free ebook is The Power of Your Words. Oh, I pointed the right direction. So you can just go to my website, danasmithers.com, and it's a downloadable ebook. It's about the words and results relationship that you get, because everything starts with your words, which give you a certain vibe. It's either positive or negative, and that's how you get the result in your life. So I'm hoping that we got a lot of high five vibers watching this. So if anyone is interested in checking out a complimentary coaching call with me, it's danasmithers.com /coaching. And again, for Petra, petramayerconsulting.com /3 mistakes -report. So that is my Google Hangout show for today. And I will be interviewing other eWomen Network experts. I'm really enjoying doing that because we're just a wealth of information. So thank you so much, Petra, for joining me today, and make sure you take advantage of what Petra has to offer.
Thank you so much, Dana, for having me, and it was great being here.
Thanks, Petra.